Hello, everybody. Welcome to Reconciling Humanity. I'm Eleanor Hayward. Really grateful to introduce my co-host, Jody Harbour of Grandmother's Voice, and Dennis Windego, who is a psychotherapist. And I am so grateful for your attendance here. We are discussing the spiritual path to mental wellness, hosted on Skyward TV and Hopeful Radio. Welcome. And on that spiritual path to mental wellness, an issue that's important to me is the concept of decolonization and having this conversation, because I don't think it's just one thing. And as much as I respect that decolonization is a political process, it's a structural, institutional policy issue, it's also, from my perspective, a mindset issue, a heart set issue. How do we shift perspective? How do we shift our value system? And I really honor the truth and reconciliation process that we've got here in Canada. I'm filming in Burlington, which is between Toronto and Niagara Falls, and really grateful. Wanting to say a little bit of a land acknowledgement. As a settler descendant, I acknowledge the past and current stewards of this land, the Haudenosaunee, Wendat Huron, and Attawandaron peoples. I honor and respect the wonderful elements of creation that exist, including the four directions, the land, waters, plants, animals, and ancestors that walked before us. The territory that I'm on is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which is an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Six Nations Confederacy, the Anishinaabe Ojibwe, and the allied nations to peaceably share and care for the lands and relationships around the Great Lakes. We acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. And I am personally grateful for the autumn season. I love the colors and the fresh air and the chill in the bones. I prefer neither the extreme heat or the cold personally. I love the milder temperatures of autumn and the fresh harvest that comes with it. And blessed be. So Jody, you are the co-founder of Grandmother's Voice. Would you please share with us what you do? And then you can introduce Dennis.
Hi, nice to see you and everyone that will be joining us today or later on as you find this video somewhere on your path. I'm Jody Harbour, and my great-grandmother was of the Cayuga Nation, Six Nations of the Grand River Territory. I'm urban. I've grown up in the urban in Ontario, love to travel, and I follow my heart. Grandmother's Voice is a part of my ancestry. I am connected to spirit, and I trust that I'm here to speak my truth, help heal whatever needs to be healed. I'm a helper, and my paths crossed with Dennis a couple of times, and I reached out and said, how can I help? What do you do? I want to know more. When I saw him, there was this essence that reminded me of my father in strength. And I just was, how can I serve? And he's amazing. And Dennis, I think we're honored to have you here. And this time, this world we're in some, I think, some big changes. And the Indigenous voice, knowledge, wisdom, ancient wisdom is so important. And you transfer that knowledge in the work that you do. So I'm grateful to have you here. Please introduce yourself and tell people how great I think you are.
Please.
Oh, Miigwech. Thank you. My name is Dennis Windego. I'm also known as Zongwe Benes, which is my original name given to me through ceremony, through life, a process of what we call today a rites of passage. Zongwe Benes Dijnikaz, Biju Dotem, Nigiguns Menekaning Donji. So that's the community. I come from Nigiguns Menekaning First Nation in northwestern Ontario, which is part of Treaty 3. I also live in Ottawa. I have connections in Thunder Bay and Sudbury, and family connection because that's where my children are. And I do this kind of work. I've been doing this work for many years, over 30 years at least. I can't even remember. It seems like I just started because it's always so interesting and new information always coming up and new ways of looking at issues and looking at things. But what has remained constant is the spiritual aspect of the work that I've been doing. It's always been there. I come from a family of 12. There was 12 of us. And my father was a very, very traditional, very spiritual kind of person. And he knew about the medicines, he knew about that way of life, and he would teach us. So we would be picking whatever it was, berries or roots or whatever it was, and we would pick it up, prepare it, dry it out, mix it up, and bag it up in whatever way we needed to. And he would travel around the country doing ceremony and doing healing and doctoring for people. And that was happening during the years where growing up, where of course he didn't think I was paying attention. I didn't think I was paying attention either, but that all that experience, that knowledge, and that way of life is encoded inside of you, is encoded inside. When you think you weren't listening, it just comes up and it's like aha, wow, how did I know this? And I truly believe that we all have that connection, that very strong and powerful connection that we all have. And that's what I rely on a lot, mainly in the work that I do with people. In Ontario, I am known as a social worker. I guess I do psychotherapy. People say that I'm a healer. I don't know what to call myself. When people say, "What's your title?" I say, "I don't know." I have many titles. And I also work in Quebec, and I'm registered with Psychology du Quebec as a permit holder to do psychotherapy there. But my work remains constant right across wherever I go. And it's that spiritual part, that spiritual aspect. And when we talk about land-based healing, I think about where we look, and we have to look inside of ourselves, because we are the land. And if we are the land, we are also medicine. And the elders always said, whatever you seek is already inside of you. So we have to look into our land for our medicine, for our direction, for our way. We are dealing with so many issues as human beings in this world, and we have to look at what is available to us and how we use that. Is there any questions right now? Like, I'm not sure where you want me to go with all this. So if you can ask me a question.
So what does colonization mean to you? And then therefore, what does decolonization mean to you in your work?
Do you want the Webster Dictionary definition? What does it mean to me? Well, I guess to me it means the taking over, the imposition of values, of culture, of language, of institutions, and everything that we see in life. And it's about devaluing the marginalized people that have been colonized, and that marginalization continues in present day form. It's not something that happened or started in 1492 and it's about past. It's about right now and how it continues. And because we have been devalued, we have been marginalized and continue to struggle with those issues, we have to look at what is our value system, what is our beliefs, what is our ways. And it comes down to our teachings that come from a place that we know as since time immemorial. Since time immemorial takes us way back and connects us way back before 1492, and our ways, our ceremonies. And to me, this is decolonizing, is to understand those ways, it's to know those ways, and it's to practice those ways. But it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, we have to go back and live those old ways. It means we're bringing the values, we're bringing the practices, we're bringing the medicine from everything that is about that into the present, and finding our way out of that darkness of colonialism, because it's all around us. But also we need to acknowledge and to find balance in that, in how our lives are supported through that process that we have received from whatever you want to call it, development or colonization. So it's always a balance that we have to look for. So let me talk about a situation. I was in a community, and I was doing a group healing program. I had about 40 people in there, and I had elders and support people that were there as part of my team. And as we're going through this healing process, something triggered for this young man, and this young man was known to be suicidal, angry, depressed, and into addictions. So he had not so good of a reputation in his community, and people didn't really trust him. And during one of the sessions, he was overwhelmed, and he started to lose control of himself emotionally, even physically. And he started to talk in a voice that sounded really rough, and his voice changed, and what he was going through, it just overwhelmed everybody, and the group scattered, and they left the room in a panic. But I know that this is a reaction. This is a reaction to some kind of woundedness. This is a reaction to some kind of pain. And we need to be able to stabilize some of that reaction to get the woundedness of all this, and what is the wound all about, without getting into a lifelong story, because the body, spirit is already telling the story in those behaviors. And this is a story of colonialism, and colonialism lives inside of us, and how we interpret our lived experiences, and our if we're dealing with racism, if we're dealing with violence, if we're dealing with discrimination, and all these issues. So this is all coming up for him in this. And I had the elders bring a buffalo hide. They had this buffalo rug, and we laid it down on the floor, and I got the young man to lay on that rug, and I started to pray over him. And as I'm praying, I asked the elders to sit and pray on that side of the room, and the women to pray on that side of the other side of the room. And I just said, just pray, and we'll see. I'll see what happens here. I'll see where it's going to take us. I truly believe that as helpers, or as guides, or whatever you want to call us, healers, or, to me, the person that I work with is the healer. That person isn't even a client, because to me, client is the colonial term that we label people as, oh, this is a client, I seen 20 clients today, or whatever it is, right? This is a person. This is a person who has experience, who has a story to tell. And this is someone that, this to me, this is a healer, but he just hasn't realized that part of him yet. So I'm sitting beside this healer. I kneel down beside him, and as I'm noticing his energy, I could feel this really darkness about him. And I asked him into that, and I asked him, what's it like in that place that seems to be attacking you? Me, it seems like there's a place attacking you, or you're trying to run away from it. Can you help me understand what that is? Because I'm not quite getting it. And he said, I'm just lost. I've been lost for so long. It's just, I am in that place of darkness, and there's nobody there. Nobody cares about me. My family is gone there. I don't have my parents. I don't have any siblings. I'm all alone now. Most of my family has passed on. And so he's describing a lot of trauma, in a lot of traumatic losses, and a lot of other types of traumatic experiences that he'd been dealing with. And as he's talking about that, I noticed something moving inside the body. And so I brought out the eagle fan and started to brush him down. And I noticed something else, where it seemed like there was something stuck in his throat, something in that area. So I got beside him and I told him just to start blowing that through, but be very gentle with that. Because if we have medicine inside of us, I want him to tap into that medicine and to move that energy. If that energy, some of that energy is his, some of it is his family's, some of it is the people who harmed him, some of it comes from so many different places. And so his whole body, his whole breathing is telling a story of his history, without getting into the way we tell stories, because our bodies, our spirits tell stories in a whole different way. And as he's doing that, I could feel that energy. And as when we are sitting beside people, when we're helping them, sometimes we take the hit of that. Sometimes we absorb it. And I could feel that I was absorbing it and I was taking it in, but I encourage him just to keep releasing it. And as he's laying there, he's releasing out all of his emotions. And I'm not asking him what it's about. I'm not asking him to tell me what his story is, because I've seen this so many times in the field, where people are going through something, and the practitioner is trying to get a story. What is the story about it? And even if they tell the story, that might not be the root cause of it. That might be the reaction place of it. So we want to get to the root cause of it. So he's just releasing it all out. And because that all those symptoms that I'm seeing, it has a context to it. And to me, it has a historical context. And that history includes his siblings, his parents, his grandparents. It goes into that lineage where that pain has been transmitted through generations, and he's experiencing all of it. And it comes from and it seems to be, when I look into his eyes, he has this far, far away look, as if he's just staring somewhere way beyond today, way beyond right now. And I had him notice that. I want you to notice in the eyes what I'm noticing in your eyes. In other words, I'm allowing him to see himself through my eyes and what I'm seeing. And he said, yeah, this goes back a long ways, and it just keeps attacking me. And so there's an attacking to it. And so he's actually telling me in stories of intergenerational trauma that are living inside of his body. And then I hear this it's not a voice, but it's a sense of knowing. And I know that the spirits are in the room. And this name, for some reason, I say to him, your name is, and I gave him a name. I don't even recall that name. And I said it in the Anishinaabe language, and I don't even speak Anishinaabe. And he, when he said his name, he stood up, and he said his name eight times, and his whole body shifted, his whole body changed, and then the glow on his face, the glow in his eyes, it were just shining, and then he said that he really wants to live. He just doesn't know how, with all of this pain, but he wants to learn how to put that away, how to find himself, to find that identity. So we just worked with, first of all, the individual, which is I. He had an overwhelming experience. Something triggered him. So I was triggered. And then as we processed that, he noticed we have been dealing with this family, community, and all of that is important, and it's all stuck and stored in his body, in every cell, every bone, every muscle, everything. And we're slowly flushing it out like a river. Be that river. What kind of river, what kind of water do you need to be? That river. And be that, become that. Because if you say, oh, there's a water that I remember, you're not that water. You need to be that water, because that's the spiritual connection. But it's also the physical connection, because 80%, maybe more, maybe less, of our body is made of water. So we're connecting into our medicine, into our water system, and the breathing, the oxygen, the air, and the memories, the roots, like the tree roots, the plant roots. That's how the brain system is kind of designed. So we're getting into the history, into the root causes of all of this. He's tapping into all of his medicine. And as he works with that darkness of whatever it is, everything that he's been carrying, because we do carry our histories with us. And now there's light there. There's love, there's compassion. All those medicines that I just named. And we all have that inside of us. And he's standing on ground, on rock, on Turtle Island. And then he announces his name. And even his voice changed. He's very calm, and he loves his name. And he finds, and he feels like, I know who I am. So now he worked first with I, we, and then returned to I, because I now can connect and reconnect with community. The first I, he was disconnected. In the we, he's connected to everything and everyone, and even what happened before he was born. And going to I, this is who I am. But the I is in connection, is in relationship with everyone, all my relations. And he felt a lot better, and he left. So now I had a debriefing with the elders and with the women. And what the women said when they were praying and they looked at the wall, they said there's this big eagle that was there flapping his wings. And they said, before you even gave him that name, we knew his name. We heard that name. So we knew you were going to give him that name. And I was like, really? I was just so impressed with that. Because when I was part of this, it was like me watching me doing this, but it wasn't really me. I don't know if you can understand that. But, and then when the elders talked, there was this one elder, he was already in his 90s, and he was shedding some tears. And he said, I remember when I was a little boy, he said, I remember when I was a little boy, my great grandfather, he said, he used to do ceremonies. He used to do healing. And what you just did there is something I seen my great-grandfather do when he was helping people and he was doctoring. So how could I do something that I've never done before, but yet this elder validated it? He said he's seen it before. If I've never seen it before, how could I even do a ceremony or a doctoring that I've never been exposed to? Because it's that strong spiritual connection. It's very powerful. Because what we do today, it comes from a someplace inside of us. It comes through our DNA. I was merely a passage or a vessel to do this, because that's what it felt like. I'm watching myself do this, but I'm not doing it. I'm watching this. I'm also an observer, but at the same time, I'm a guide, and I'm going through this with this young man. And then what happened after that? People in the community would tell me, "Oh, you're a medicine man," and I'd say, "No, I'm just a social worker. I just help people. I just do what I can." They said, "No, you're a medicine man." And people would come to me with their regalia, their sacred items, and they would want me to bless them. They would bring their tobacco to me, and they would say, "You gave this name to this young man. I want my name. Can you give me a name?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not gifted like that." And I had received a lot of requests there. And now here's the community healing piece. Now, when the elder talked about he watched his grandfather do this when he was a child, his great-grandfather do this when he was a child, he said, we lost our way. It was after residential schools came in, and now we were too afraid to practice our ways. And he said, what I learned today and what I want to tell my community, he said, we have to return to our way to help people. So to me, that's decolonizing our approaches to healing. We have what is called scientific research, and it follows a certain procedure. But we also have spiritual research, and it also follows a procedure very similar to scientific. And in a good scientific research, it stands the test of time. And what I just told you, what I just shared with you, it stands the test of time because it came from way before my lifetime, way before even this elder who was in his 90s already, before his lifetime. It came through all those generations, and it's valid, it's reliable, it's evidence-based in spirit. It has all the same elements as a good scientific research report. It just has a different way of being shared, because with scientific research, you need to have a tangible document in front of you. In our way, we sit in a circle, we share stories like this. I cannot give you a detailed analysis of everything that happened in that day, in that moment. Some of it I don't even understand because it's not for me to understand. But this young man, he understands it because his life changed moving forward from that time. So to me, that's decolonizing. And to me, he was also holding the history of colonialism inside of him. I don't know if that makes sense, but
that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
That was so powerful, so beautiful.
Yeah, and so much in there.
Yeah.
But what I heard, and I'm hoping that the non-Indigenous people, we're all Indigenous, but in this moment, there's this, when we talk about Reconciling Humanity. We're talking about how do we bring this knowledge in a good way, share it with the people, because the colonized, like this, it's happened to all of us. You specifically talk about a community, and maybe we're assuming an Indigenous community, these communities that you work with that are in remote communities that don't have what we have in our urban world. So they're already marginalized, they're already don't have everything, but really they have everything when they're returned to their culture. And so this is what I learned from watching you and just listening to you. I'm remembering all of these times I've been in this space where you're practicing, and in that moment with the people, you're not listening to their voice. You're watching their body. You're watching them. You're in that essence and spirit. And so kind of sticking to our dialogue here, and what we're trying to explain to people is how now do we move forward, and how do you share this knowledge with everyone, the people who are doing this work, this social work, and are not Indigenous, because we know that there's this stigma around what's Indigenous is Indigenous, and appropriation. And how in your practice, and because you do have a program beginning in 2024, and happy to say that Grandmother's Voice is supporting helping bring this to the mainstream, to the Western medicine that's trying to figure out how do they embed Indigenous knowledge and ancient wisdom into this system, or integrate it, or work alongside. So how do you see that happening within your your training or practice that you're bringing forward to society?
Well, one of the messages that is pretty constant that I always share is that we all come from a land somewhere. Every one of us, who's ever sitting in that circle, in that audience, or they are participants or trainees as part of a program, we all come from a land somewhere. We're all Indigenous to somewhere. And we all have that connection, that spiritual connection to land, because it is part of us. It is part of who we are. Some people have activities that strengthen that spiritual connection. Like, for example, up in the Cree Nation, they have what is called the goose hunt. That's part of their culture. And anytime I'm doing a workshop or a training or whatever, and if there's a flock of geese or even a loon goose that comes flying by and he makes his goose call, I lose the whole group, because they're going to go outside and they're going to look in the sky and they're going to start making the goose call. That's, to me, that's the cultural cues, and that defines who they are as a people, who they are as a nation, and their activities culturally, and that connects them and binds them. That's a very powerful and spiritual connection. But if we look at spirit in a different way, some of them are traditional, some of them are Anglican, some of them are Protestant, and that doesn't really unite them. That basically, creates some problems. But when they're practicing their cultural, spiritual ways, it's connecting them. And we all need to find that inside of us. So part of training is having people go through a process of introspection. Who am I? Who am I? Where do I come from? Where is my land? What are my teachings that have sustained me, that has helped my community, my people? Where do I come from? And even if it's, whatever side that, or whatever position you're in society, whether on the land or whether on a boat, we all can walk this path together, because we all come from a land somewhere. And but it's to acknowledge that, and to find and to build strategies in addressing those things, instead of having those issues of divide and conquer separate us and keep us separated. We need to find that power in each process to work together, to move forward together. when I look at the history of Indigenous people and Canada, it is a very complicated history, and we need to look at that history, whether it makes you feel comfortable or uncomfortable. We need to look at it. However it affects you or however you think about it, it's an opportunity to go through a process of introspection. Why is it hitting me like this? What is it about it that's hitting my gut, that's hitting me in the body? What is it about this information? And it's to examine that, because it's to reconcile that within oneself, within that self. And then, are you going to take a new position in how you do the work? Because I think it's always important that we position ourselves in a way, in a good way, as they say, to do it in a good way, so that we are helping people, and that we're not continuing to create this process of colonization, but to move forward and to change things to the way that people understand their world. There's a lot of different exercises, there's a lot of different teachings, and in the program I would supervise everyone in how they're doing the process. To look at when beliefs get in the way, what are those beliefs? Because it's up to that person to reconcile them, to look at them differently. One question, this professor of mine, he asked us, would your parents lie to you? And of course we all said, no way, my parents would never lie to me. But as we discussed it, and as we went through a process of introspection with it, I realized my father did lie to me. There are things that he offered to me as truth, which were not based on truth. He did lie to me. But what was the intent of those lies? It was to protect me, to help me. But also, why were the lies there? Well, because somebody else lied to him. Somebody else didn't really teach him the truth of everything around colonialism. And he truly believed those things, so he passed it on, and so he lied to us. So we really need to look at that and explain and ask ourselves, everything my parents taught me, did they lie to me too? And probably the answer would be yes. But was that lie intentional or non-intentional? Was it, what is it based on? And can you challenge that? Because it becomes our belief system. We need to challenge that. So in the program, you're actually getting your own therapy. You're actually doing your own intergenerational trauma type of therapy. You're looking at your own family systems, your own community, your own way of being, and to look at what is it you need to adjust. But you're also learning strategies in helping people heal. We are all spiritual beings having a human experience. We are all those spiritual beings. It's not owned by Indigenous people. It's owned by all people. We are all spiritual, and we can work in those ways. But if I share something that comes specifically from my people, I want people to acknowledge that. Just the way I acknowledge, oh, this is what I learned from the creation. This is what I learned from the Mohawk people. I would acknowledge that, and I wouldn't take it on as my own. Just like in any kind of, when we're doing literature reviews, and if we use some of that information, we need to cite it, right? So we also must do that, because there's also a history of appropriation, our ways being taken and stolen, and then somebody else putting their name on it and saying, this is my original thought, this is my original model, this is mine, but yet they had taken it from Indigenous person and not given them any credit. And I think that would help to build some I don't know, accountability, but also some value in our ways, because there is a lot of value in our ways.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Amazing. Yeah. So there.
I also want to say this other thing. I also had a few managers take the program, and they loved it, because as a manager, they have employees, and sometimes those employees need support for the work they're doing, but also the emotional impact it might have on them. So it's good that they have this training, and that they're able to provide that kind of supervision to their employees, even if they are not therapists.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also had non-native managers come in and take the training.
Mm-hmm.
And they could see how sometimes the people that they're supervising might unintentionally be applying those colonial ways and reinforcing them. And when they see that now, they help their workers to approach it in a decolonizing way.
Mm-hmm.
So then they have the tools to change organizations or change the way the work is being done, because colonialism affects, like you said, every part of society. It's in policies, it's even in day-to-day interactions. Like for example, there's this woman who came to me for, because she was very frustrated with Child and Family Services. And she was dealing with a Native Child and Family Services agency, and she was a foster mother, and her she was taking care of her nieces and nephews, and her nieces and nephews would call her grandma, because that is culturally appropriate. That is, like, we do not follow all the time the nuclear family system, where, oh no, that's your aunt, that's not your grandma.
Mm-hmm.
So the agencies was, giving her the riot act. You're not the grandmother, you're the auntie, you're not the grandmother. And so even the manager said, you're not the grandmother. You have to stop that, because you're confusing the children. But she's right. She is the grandmother in our cultural way.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I mean.
The belief
when
system.
We need.
Yeah.
Pardon?
The belief system, as you were saying.
Yeah, that belief system, but also,
and the values.
The nuclear family system versus the cultural family system, and the roles that people play.
Thank you. I think that's a good place to wrap up our conversation. There was such wisdom there, Dennis, and we will share the link for the course in January that Grandmother's Voice is facilitating. And really grateful for your time and your energy. And I love the story about the young man and how his voice changed and his eyes changed, and how we are the medicine, that the elements are within us if we are able to access them and hold each other in community.
Yeah. I have to just, well, I always have to say, see ya. But so much wisdom is correct. And I think that it's time. Aren't we in a time? This shift of consciousness, and people were here for a reason, to live life in a good way, and joy and love, and everything you spoke about, Dennis. I wish we could put on the largest world screen and scream it out to the world, because people are hungry to know how we heal and how we return back to community to support each other. Because we are this time, I hope that we can look back at this video in a year and feel that we are changing. The world is changing into this new beautiful world, and it's with people like you who devote their life and time to helping others on their own healing journey. So Nyawa for always saying yes and sharing knowledge. And yeah, I look really forward to supporting Grandmother's Voice looks forward to supporting what you do in the future, and hope that everyone will walk with this wisdom of supporting each other. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessed be, and thank you everybody for listening to Reconciling Humanity on Hopeful Radio, Skyward TV, and what other platform that you're listening to us. May your path to mental wellness be spiritual and fulfilling. Blessed be.